I would like to invite the first speaker of today's panel, Nikoletta Zakynthinou Xanthi. She's an architect, a partner at XZA-architects and adjunct faculty at Columbia University in New York. And because this open house is co-organized by Open House Athens, Thessaloniki, and Open House Slovenia. We also have two guests from Slovenia, so this panel is going to be Greek-Slovenian, attacking the question of heritage from from different viewpoints, different architecture practices. Nikoletta, welcome.
Okay. Hi, my name is Nikoletta. I'm from XZA-architects, an architectural practice in Athens, Greece, also expanding to Cyprus. I want to thank, first of all, Open House Europe, Open House Athens, the municipality of Athens, as well as all the co-organizers of the third annual summit for hosting this particularly meaningful two-day program and for inviting us to take part at this discussion. So we think that this year's theme about future heritage is very compelling and rigorous, and it puts architecture into the scene again, in a very contemporary way, bringing questions that engage not only with the past, but above all, with how we design, narrate, and legitimize the future. In this broader framework, in the office, we raised a couple of questions that we're trying to understand what is future heritage. Can heritage exist prospectively, or does it necessarily require historical distance in order to acquire meaning? If heritage is not neutral inheritance, but a selective and often contested field, what mechanisms determine what is recognized as heritage, who is excluded, and which forms of the future are legitimized or silenced? Can we understand technological environments and infrastructures as heritage that is passed on to the next generations? Or even, is artificial intelligence curating future heritage right now, or merely automating the existing politics of preservation? So for us, we tried to open this discussion through the case of the Cyprus Archaeological Museum, which is the project of how we came even closer to heritage. So the project is a result of a two-phase international architectural competition launched by the Republic of Cyprus in 2017. We received the first prize and undertook the full design study and the construction. Today, the project is under implementation. So the project of a new archaeological museum carries a paradox. It houses an uncontested heritage, widely accepted as a historical body that society must safeguard, within a new shell, a new body without precedent, without inherited value, and not yet inscribed in people's memory. So, how do we discuss cultural heritage today? How do we reveal it? How do we protect it? And as architects, how we design it within an archaeological museum? Especially in Europe, where antiquities are often housed in already existing historic buildings and monuments, and the architectural envelope itself already bears the stamp of heritage. In our case, we had to design anew. So for us, we inherited a field of public deliberation and discussion around heritage. We encountered and actively worked through the questions of today's debate by participating in this long-term project. We found ourselves within an already formed environment of re-inheriting. An extensive public consultation had preceded the competition, and a social and political ground had been established on which, through collective discussion, issues such as what is a museum and what does it mean were redefined. From the outset, the Cyprus Museum was a project of exceptional importance for Cypriots with strong urban, cultural, and symbolic weight. It was essentially a project of identity. They had decided to elevate the museum as a priority and to site it and locate it within the city by removing also a hospital from the plot. This choice goes beyond spatial planning. It is a clear cultural and political declaration of priority. Through this decision, a collective stance had already been shaped towards heritage and the ways Cypriot society chooses to manage it. On this ground, architects from all over the world were invited not to simply design, but first to learn the culture of Cyprus. It matters deeply to feel the freedom that such processes provide, the ability to recreate and design cultural buildings through international architectural competitions. Processes like these mean dialogue, openness, and sharing of heritage within the wider world, and acceptance of how others imagine what an archaeological museum can be today. In this sense, we found ourselves in an exceptionally fertile context. From the competition brief and the present tense as a primary factor, so from the very first beginning, like the competition brief placed the museum to the present time. It did not limit itself to the simple display of archaeological treasures. Beyond institutional procedures and consultation, the brief embedded the intention not only to present Cyprus tradition and archaeological findings, but also to activate the museum's relationship with today, not merely as a contemporary museological practice, but as a conscious choice of proximity. A museum you do not visit only as a guest, but the one with which you develop a daily curated relationship, both with exhibits and the city. So I will come to the title of this presentation, which is Heritaging, which has a double meaning. It seeks to refer to heritage as a verb, as an action performed and by someone. The one sense is heritaging as the act of inheriting or managing inheritance, receiving, preserving, or stewarding what already exists. The other notion is heritage as something produced, heritaging, something negotiating and constituted in the present, in continuous time or in actu. What is the meaning of future heritage? What is worth passing on? To define it, what we thought is that first, you need to acknowledge and understand to get a deep understanding of the past world, the conditions that produced both its tangible and intangible identity. Second, and this is precisely what you also raise as a question, like in future heritage, for us it was to convey to future generations that heritage is a living and continuous being. It has a way, it has a place, it has dimensions, and it exists within the present tense, in situ and in actu. For us, heritage was not something sealed inside a library or a display case, nor it is something self-evident, especially not something you can design and bring into present effortlessly. So we try to learn and understand the heritage of the history of Cypriots, material and material spheres that shaped the present. We spend time in archaeological sites and landscapes, in collections, in incised traces of the Cypriot syllabary, in the light and the shade of Cypriot ground. We even modeled the whole collection of the archaeological findings in order to understand it and to understand its spatialities and identity. But it took us even longer to grasp what a contemporary archaeological museum means today. What exactly are we asked to design as an architectural object, or what new environment we deliver as heritage within the public urban realm? So, alongside the design process, we kept trying to understand the nature, the enigmatic scales of an archaeological museum that poses, above all, in relation to time and heritage. I think it is worth reading the introductory text with which our competition entry began. The particularity of an archaeological museum is that it hosts a world that comes from the bowels of the earth, the remnants of human life, humble or precious, simple or crafted artifacts, which the earth preserved by granting them value of the prices. With this value, people rediscovered them, digging into the earth to find their identity. They are distant traces of everyday people, archetypal offspring of human life, anthropocentric prototypes of the temporal soul. Moreover, an archaeological museum is a reflective, melancholic, and sometimes moving space because, as it deals with the past, it narrates its incomplete human fate of birth, memory, and decay, time, and the imperfect human condition. Inside the museum, a view, a fisherman, and young woman are the same. Light is a powerful material through which one can reveal the fluidity of time across eras and the artifacts that once shone and then disappeared. But it's not enough. The present tense must also enter the life that continues, either through the restorative presence of nature or through visual escapes towards the living city. Another dimension is that for Cypriots and for all the peoples, the archaeological museum is a presence of their enduring identity. It is precious burden of a distinctive historical and cultural heritage alive in the city, not only through moments and historical remnants, but also through the vitality of tradition, landscape, and language. Seferis, who loved this island deeply, writes in Hedonic Elpenor, "The statues are in the museum. They do not pursue you, can't you see? I mean, with their broken limbs, with their former shape, that you did not know, but yet you very well know." The wire is to translate into space the meaning of this continuous presence, sometimes hidden, sometimes tangible or intangible, and to make it the very matter of the museum's design. Our vision was a new cultural installation as a generous gesture towards the city, one that could generate new environments and nourish new social and cultural productivity. The museum as an open field of culture in the present time. And the museum meaning was found actually somewhere in the collection, hidden in one of the inherited artifacts that returned again to the light. I will describe the museum so that you have an image of how it looks and how it works. So the museum is sited outside the medieval walls of Nicosia as an in-between condition between the Crene and urban zones near the walls, extending towards the Pediaeos River. Functions are stratified. Storage at the B2 level, workshops, administration, cafe, temporary exhibitions, education, and theater at the B1 level that works also with the ground floor. Entrance and foyer at the ground floor, and the permanent exhibition, which is at the level 1 and level 2 of these volumes. This is how it looks. It's 3 distinct volumes shaped by the historic times of Cyprus, but also the museology and museography study. They are connected with bridges, and you start from the right side, and the building invites you inside, and you jump on the one vessel, and you start the exhibition. It's 3 volumes. They're sitting on a double-level podium, let's say, a platform, sorry, and which works with the city and the present time. As we see here also, we can see the different uses in the ground floor, on the ground floor. And one thing to point out is the library, which is a preserved building that we had to keep also and combine it with the design of the museum. So everything starts from this central square, this invite to the museum that brings you into like the interior spaces. As I mentioned, like this is how you move around the permanent exhibition, and this is a section where you can see how the two levels of the platform work. You can see the existing preserved building and the 3 volumes. So trying a little bit like to explain the idea and how we design with heritage or how we design with time. The first thing is that it was actually like this gravitational force. It is a hovering cloud of a distinctive heritage that, while it now belongs to everyone, global, it cannot live. It cannot separate from its terra because it comes from the Cypriot ground that gave birth to it. It hovers yet remains still, suspended, unable to detach from the maternal earth. Through this reference, we point to the overall atmosphere which we began to design, but also to the first key enigma, the tension between the gravitational pull of the place and the universal character of heritage that raised questions of identity and universality of the museum. So what happens when you excavate and you find these artifacts? What should be the new environment to receive an inherited object when brought back into life? The natural and temporal sequence of artifacts was clear. Produced by the place, and over time, it was buried in the ground. Our proposal suggests reversing this timeline. The study proposes that they will be lifted from the earth and declare their presence to contemporary people. Because when something returns from darkness and oblivion, it becomes collective memory and it belongs to all. So this is the move that we tried to reverse, like to bring these artifacts back to light. The exhibition volumes were lifted even further to allow the city and the Cypriot landscape to flow between and through the museum. Their elevation frees the exterior ground plane and forms a large public space with varied qualities, an open ground level that enables movement and unifies the building with its natural surroundings. The building's arrangement on the plot creates a large forecount, functioning both as referential square for the House of Representatives and the existing archaeological museum. This square becomes the beginning and the end of a journey through time, and a critical point in designing the museum's temporality flows. So, shaping this new stratigraphy of past, present, and maybe future, we raised these volumes and tried to shape them in a way so that they work with their environment, they work with this intangible, inherited heritage of Cypriots. These were the steps. We created the 3 volumes which align with the history of the Cypriots and Cyprian artifacts and findings, creating smaller and bigger climates, like smaller parts, but also larger spaces to share. And we based these volumes on 2 cores to free the ground floor from any columns. So the exhibition was organized into 3 conceptual and spatially distinct sections. The place, the topos, narrating prehistory and focusing on early inhabitants' relationship with the land and its pressures. C, in the middle, is the timeless in-between, emphasizing the island's enduring relationship with the maritime element. And then Cosmos, addressing historical periods and focusing on movements of Cypriots, exchanges, and interactions among the Mediterranean cultures. So the exhibition functions as a dive into Cypriot history. In some areas, treasures of noble families can be found, or in other areas, everyday objects of common life, primarily small-scale artifacts, once carried by ships and trade, can be located. The three elevated volumes derive directly from museological approach. They follow the long lines of the context, and they are shaped to adapt to the triangular plot and its adjacencies, including the existing and listed fabric. The longitudinal voids between volumes open visual escapes between the city and the river, and allow distant views towards the sea. On the one hand, they allow the contemporary city, operating again in the present time, to infiltrate the museum. On the other hand, they frame the gaze of the Cypriot character, the traveler, the tamer of the sea, the merchant of multiple seas, speaking three languages and carrying ideas into the future. The clarity of the concept is reflected in how technology provides the precision required for an outcome that retains a sense of handmade. The idea of the mold and the imprint made it clear that the structural system could incorporate both the small scale of the display and the artifacts, but also to combine it with the mechanical and climatic requirements of the building. We understood that the artifacts must be gathered according to the conceptual units and protected as Cyprus treasures, while also introducing within the exhibition a smaller scale capable of embracing their dimensions. This produced a section that creates a second scale in the display cases and simultaneously brings indirect light into the volume. Let's watch a video of the exhibition where the three volumes are connected by bridges, enabling a continuous return to the living time of the city. The exhibition area is approximately 6,000 square meters. The interior was scaled through the intersection of mezzanines in each volume, creating a friendly scale for the visitors, double height spaces, and varied modes of display, spatially and through conditions of natural and artificial light. A particularly characteristic device is the linear display as a recess in each volume's cell, running through almost the entire exhibition. Given the small size of most artifacts, a typology of linear display cases was developed to adapt to the shell, to the changing curvature, ensuring high capacity and uniformity. Beyond the perimeter displays, there are central freestanding vitrines with prominent exhibits and interactive stations that mark transition between curatorial units. Our concern was the artifact not to appear as an isolated object. It is therefore accompanied by a rich environment of digital representations and graphic compositions. I'm going to cut the video a little bit. These are some spaces on the interior where you can see also the scale applying also to the flooring, and how we try to create a different scale for this space of the museum. Finally, a new typeface was designed, inspired by the Cypriot syllabary. The same inscriptions were engraved into the museum's external public space, extending the exhibition into the public realm. Few notes as an epilogue. The new museum integrates into the city, seeking a distinct and unambiguous presence as guardian of Cyprus history, in a city where history is living and present, in constant dialogue with the museum. Its purpose is to function as a landmark, not to impress, but to convey the imprint that constitutes its identity. Although it hosts the past and those who pass through it, it is not a static episode in the city's flows. It hovers, stating in symbolic way without interrupting movement and everyday life. It is the point where two worlds meet, past and present, creating a new urban event that can revitalize the city, generating new cultural and everyday behaviors and habits that enrich urban life. there is a key point where I want to delineate, and in like a combination to our today's discussion. The visitors' entire encounter within the museum is based on a curated interface with heritage and time. You begin from the public urban square and the canopy that invites you to approach the world of the past that now stands hovering within the city. Each time you come to know a part of it, you plunge into the past and then re-emerge into the light and face the present. You face the city itself, where you are a participant and likely producing culture and heritage as your predecessors once did without knowing it. It is that exact luminous in-between space where you face the city after seeing what your predecessors produced and how they made heritage without realizing it. It's that in-between time that lets you question the now and maybe the future, and how, as a social being, you are making heritage as we speak. So the second inquiry concerns the museum contemporaneity, and we do not mean only technology, which will, of course, express its era, but primarily the contemporary understanding of what is an archaeological museum today and how it produces identity. In the age of globalizations, where borders, ways of living, and perceptions are being homogenized, it is difficult to define what the identity of the place is. Even more so, it is difficult for architectural composition and design to respond in a contemporary language to history and identity without falling into traps of fleeting novelty, formal exercises, or stereotypical limitations, issues that surface precisely in designing an archaeological museum today. It's not a temple of memory, not a gallery of archaeological aesthetics. We try to create a space where past and present and future meet through the living everyday life of the city. A space that operates within the city, not as a static event, but one that generates new environments and behaviors, feeding contemporary life with new meanings, new ways of producing culture. We live for a Sunday at the museum, for a walk at the museum, by the river, for a meeting in a cool courtyard, alongside events, for an evening stroll, or to take part in a celebration. Cities lack such public spaces. It can become a place of multiple meetings, knowledge, and ways that can be recreated through time. And for us, it's going to be a way that we interpreted heritage in the past, present, and future. We hope that through this proposal to make the discussion, we hope that we made the discussion a little bit more interesting. And in any case, we are happy that this museum brought us here to participate in this discussion. Thank you.
Our second speaker for today is also from Greece. It's Dionisis Sotovikis, a practicing architect and a member of the board of the Hellenic Institute of Architecture. Dionisis.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dionisis Sotovikis. I'm an architect, and I have an office here in Athens. We do work as every architect with contemporary buildings. But actually, personally, as an architect, I'm devoted in creating an architectural project parallel with the practice of my office. So this big project that is about building time. And I will explain to you how this has happened in time and space. So 1884, 1956, and 2028. 1884 is a time that the Rodakis house in Aegina was built. 1956 is the time that the Spiteris house in Kypseli was also designed by Aristomenes Provellegios. And 2028, at the time that I decided to do that, was the future, defining the space between them by 72 years. When I said that 2028, it was many, many, many years before. So my work is about started without knowing how. I first got involved with this whole project by saving this house in Athens, in Kypseli. And actually, what we see. So this was the initial house of the Spiteris couple. Spiteris was one of the first art critics in art history in Greece, and Ioanna Spiteri Veropoulou was a sculptor. They were a couple and they had no children, and they're living in this house in Kypseli. And on the right, you can see that they had a garden. In this garden, at a point, they asked Aristomenes Provellegios to design and build a small atelier for Ioanna, so she can work but also live there. All the 4 properties had their own entrance, and so it was not one house. There were four houses from the beginning. There were going to be 4 houses from the beginning. So they asked Aristomenes Provellegios, who was a close colleague of Le Corbusier for many, many years, and as he came back from France to design and build this small house. So these are the initial drawings of Spiteris and the Spiteri now inside the space. When actually the couple died, they left the whole building to a foundation, and the foundation wanted to demolish the house, and that's how I got involved by friends without knowing why at that time. So these are the 2 buildings now. Before I save them and restore them and finally buy them. And what Aristomenes actually is a very important figure in me, which I didn't say, because he was an architect that had a very active social life. He was not an architect that just wanted to build concrete boxes and multiply them in the Athens that was actually been built all over at that time. But he was an architect that he preferred to be a poet, to be a painter, to teach a lot at the universities, to design the expansion of Athens at that time, which actually nothing of this happened. And for me, this is something very important in architecture. Architecture, if it hasn't a social value, it hasn't a social act and social value, is not something important. They are just boxes. And for me, these boxes are important when they come alive and they get life and social life. So what I have done, in the beginning, I restored the small building by Aristomenes Provellegios, transformed it to rent it and become a gallery of contemporary art for many years. But then with the crisis, this closed, stopped, and then it became my atelier. And through the time, I have been connecting back these properties, the 4 properties, into a new space that keep all the spaces as they are, but give another kind of value and interchange of spaces through that labyrinth of spaces now. So without demolishing anything, I start connecting them and giving different qualities to to the spaces, and finally becoming this whole thing a space that is actually my house, my home, but also is an active space that we make exhibitions, it hosts art events, we make big dinners for friends, and it has become actively also an open always to the public as part of this kind of scheme that architecture should always be like that. So architecture is about connecting also people. It's about making stories and connecting the stories of these people. So one of the few things that we have done in the, actually go back. One of the few things that I have done to restore the building is just peeling off the layers of paint in all the elements of the house in order to discover the initial choices of Aristomenes Proverlegios. In the beginning, in order to repaint them, but then finally I decided that this kind of layering of time in all the object was something more important than just repaint them. This kind of use through the whole years is something more important than the initial choice. And the whole thing of connecting the spaces began with this kind of cupboard. That was actually the cupboard of my bedroom at that time. And I had my clothes inside. And after many years, I realized that behind this cupboard, behind the cupboard was a corridor of the other house that I wanted to, sorry, I forgot something very important to say, that the whole thing of connecting the whole house was, I had a problem that Spitaides had left the 3 out of the 4 properties in the foundation, but the middle part of the house had left it to the girl that was taking care of them. So finally, as I managed to buy the properties from the foundation, and finally I want to buy the property from the girl, then she was asking me at that time triple the money that she was asking before, so I never got this property. So I always, for many years, I had this problem of how I would connect the 3 properties that I had without the missing part, which was in the middle. So in the coronavirus area, that I had more time, I realized that behind my cupboard, that I had my clothes for many years, behind that was the corridor of the other house. So I started demolishing the wall of my cupboard and discovering on the back of my cupboard another space. Another space that opened up to a real space, but opened up also to a new psychological space. I start realizing that how things are hidden in cupboards, and how the modern movement has tried to do that very systematically. How the modern movement, although I admire it and I love it, has tried to hide all this kind of connecting to the past or to the future stories that are different than modern. So this kind of connecting to something that was not only modern, but it was something else, it, at my eyes, got something very important. Something that it was missing in the architecture that I was trying to find out. Architecture is not about a style. Architecture is not about a material. It's not about concrete. It's not about glass. It's not about something like that. Architecture is about life. And life is what connects us and what will connect us to the future. So this space, also then, in order to connect the third space, the underground space, I realized that a very small space in the staircase of the second apartment had no basement, so I start on my own digging on the ground, making a hole, and through this hole connecting to the second one to the third apartment, which became an exhibition space for architecture, for art, and making, again, a space that my friends of architecture, but also of art, can exhibit their work and start a dialogue between all these kind of elements. So different kind of installations, different kind of big exhibitions that has been in the space. A big exhibition of Panos Charalambous, established a friend and one of the greatest Greek artists, took all over the place 2 times to make his exhibition there. And I go now to the second part of this big journey in time, 1884. Actually, at the crisis year, I had huge problems. Before the crisis, I had taken very big loans to buy the house that you saw in Spiteris, the Spiteris house, and then to huge loans also to make my office in Marousi. And then with the crisis, I didn't know what I should do. So I wanted to find out something that will help me and guide me not to lose my faith in architecture and in life. So at the time, I found out that there was a house in Aegina, the Rodakis house, one of the most famous Greek houses that was very important from my student years since then, that was getting ruined. So I got involved. I said that I'm going to get involved in order to save the house. So this is a small farmer house in the fields of Aegina. These are the photographs that actually the Spiteri couple took in their visit to Aegina. So that's, in a way, how the two things got connected. So all these photographs, which are very old, are by Spiteris for the Rodakis house. Rodakis, actually, the house was been built in 1884 by Alexander Rodakis for his wife and their 8 children. 8 children living in a very small house. I mean, the house that you see now in the photograph, it's shorter than a man. It's not big. If a man stands in front of it, it will be probably higher, taller. So this is the light well. And Rodakis, although he was a farmer, he was at the same time a painter, a sculptor, an architect, a philosopher, a poet, and a musician. All this combined in one thing, and in his life, and all of them at the same time that he was raising with very pure things that he had, raising 8 children at that time. The Rodakis house was first discovered by Furtwängler, who was doing the excavation at Afea, and then a famous archaeologist. And then it was discovered in the 1920s by Dimitris Pikionis. Dimitris Pikionis, for you that you don't know him, he is one of the 3, let's say, biggest Greek architects of the century. That has designed the pavement and the walking pavement all around Acropolis. And he's a guy that changed also the way that he gave another approach to the modern movement. So Pikionis met with Rodakis. He saw exactly this small elevation that I show you there, which is an elevation which is 3 meters by 3.5, and changed his career. Rodakis has been building this small elevation by stones that he found on the plot, by stones that he carves on his own and put them around the windows, but also he placed some stones on the wall that he had collected either from the Byzantine village of Aegina, the Paleochora, or the ancient temple of Afea, and taking these small stones and placing them in a hole in his new elevation. By that way, he had been building the Greek civilization of the last 2,000 years in this small elevation. This approach that Rodakis took changed totally the view of Pikionis. Pikionis before Rodakis was an architect that was doing Bauhaus architecture with straight lines and white volumes. And after his meeting an approach of Rodakis, he changed totally the view of architecture, and he actually managed to change also the view of what contemporary and modern architecture could be. So Pikionis asked two friends of his, Frieslander and Giulio Caimi, two scholars of that time, to write a small book about this space in Aegina, to draw the space, but also to bring us the stories why Rodakis was doing what he was doing. At that time, as I said, the house was almost ruined. In 2000, from 1985, that the last daughter of Rodakis died, the house got ruined, got almost demolished, almost got down everything. So I got involved in order to save the house. I got involved without owning the house, but I had managed to find the owners and convince them that it was something very important, and they had to we have to try to save it. At the time, I knew that there was no time in the house, so I had to act and find ways to act very quickly and save the house without taking the proper permission at the time, that we are still trying since then to take them. And people are fighting, so we don't take the permissions 10 years after that. And we start this kind of saving the house. This is, I will go back to one of the stories and then okay, so this is the small elevation that I had been talking, that changed the view of Pikionis. Sorry, I hadn't realized that I was looking at the slides here, but that you couldn't be able to see the slides. And this is the small book that Frieslander made for the house. So, and these are some of the images in the situation that I found the house that was almost ruined. And these are the drawings that we have submitted in order to take the permissions, but we're still waiting and we're still fighting for that. Because all the people that were citing before that the house should be saved were the same exactly people that were then suing us, calling the police, going to the ministry, and getting delayed the whole process of saving the house. The house, but we managed finally to save the house. The house is alive. It's there. It's standing there. And it is open. So I will go a bit quickly because time goes by. So these are, Rodakis has done a series of things, like these two faces that he put it in the two corners of the house, which were the protectors of the house. And then he placed the main elevation, this is a four sculpture, which were the pig, a clock, a snake, and an eagle. And he placed these four sculptures in his elevations, and he said that the pig represents time, the pig represents good luck, the clock represents time, the snake represents wisdom, and the eagle represents time. And he was saying that my house has not been built with stones. My house has been built with ideas. And these four ideas are the four columns of my house. And in these columns get away, then my house will collapse. And actually, this is exactly what it happened in 1985, when the sculptures got away in order to get protected. So both of the houses are my houses now. I live there with my family. and my son. He had also written some very important words in the walls, and I will just, there are many, many more stories, but I will give you some of the stories that George Xanthi, which again was a close colleague of Le Corbusier for many years, is starting his biography by referring to Rodakis. And he was talking about his last meeting with Rodakis. And this story says that Xanthi goes to meet Rodakis after many years, and he finds him lying in a bed. And he asked me, how are you, Alexander? I says, I'm getting prepared for my big trip. Getting prepared for your big trip, but then what are you carving on the stones? And Rodakis replied, I'm carving on the two stones my two hands to place them on the right and on the left of the fire, in order, so in a bit of time that I will have gone, all my friends can come, touch my hand, and say, hello, Alexander. For me, this is one of the biggest pieces of architecture. This is one of the highest level that architecture can reach. So the third project that I'm running parallel is about architecture that is not just a profession, but is a vocation. Something that we have to go and think very carefully of how we want to build the future. A future that will collect things from the past and will provide us something for the future. And for me, the open house is we have a big collaboration. Spiteri House is the only house that runs in open house for more than 10 years. And for me, open house was a turning point in that process, because it opened up architecture to visiting and to people. People, I started realizing that architecture doesn't exist without people. Architecture doesn't exist if you don't talk to people and you don't become part of the whole story. So both of the buildings are open to the public, open to all the stories. And so the third project, this big project, is my project about how modern will be transformed to something else, something more human, something closer to modest. And this is going to be a real space that will host all these kind of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dionisis. Our next speaker for now is our first guest from Slovenia. It's Maruša Zorec. She's founder of Arrea Architecture and a consistent practitioner in preservation.
Hello. Thank you, Open House Athens and Greece and Open House Slovenia, for inviting me to this wonderful city. It would not be possible to say no, to come to the palimpsest of time and see how actually real life is going on in all the layers of history. And that is something that actually interests also me through my work that I'm doing actually for many years, dealing with the past and trying to bring this past to my time, to our time, and by that, hopefully also to the future. I think the Open House project, I really congratulate to all of you organizing these wonderful events, because we architects working in practice don't actually realize how much this networking of different activities helps us to actually pass the ideas we are working on to everybody. And I think people are capable to understand architecture. People are capable to be passionate. People are capable to be emotional about it. And while we're trying to do this with materialized structures, I think all these different kind of events, talking, discussions, and presentations actually brings our struggle to everybody. I would like to really quickly show you a couple of my projects, trying to really unveil the hidden of the past. I'm not building new buildings, I'm mostly transforming the existing buildings, mostly highly protected heritage buildings, and trying to bring them to be part of our time, not looking at them as a frozen monument, but taken and being acceptable, like the shelves of the life going inside them. And therefore, the quotation of Josip Brodsky is so interesting for me because he talks about the dust. He talks about the dust carrying actually the stories, the life, and the flesh and the blood of time passing through our buildings. We tried to present that in the Venice Biennale, trying with our actually pavilion show what we actually do. We liberate the interior spaces. We liberate the existing to establish and enable life inside our buildings, trying to move people around the spaces, feeling actually free inside the existing condensed structures. On the behind walls of our pavilion at that time, we also presented some topics that are intriguing us. This is not the program done by the clients, but mostly this is something that is a kind of an intimate goal of our project. This is the silence, this is the light, these are the stories that are hidden, and these are the layers of the past inserted in the buildings. Of course, working always with strong concepts. Oh, you can use the mic. Yeah. Trying to work a lot with the walls we are breaking and enabling transitions of modern free floor plans inside our buildings. We try to evoke also the sense for the primeval space, which for us, especially for me, for my office, is very important, and trying to gain freedom to open the horizons to the people that are using our buildings. Beside that, we present it, and we are struggling also for the heritage of our ancestors that we consider very important in my country. And I think that's something that unites us also in Europe, being really proud on the legacy that was built before us, on all the layers, on the steps, and all our ancestors. And these are the three modernists of Slovenia, from Plečnik to Ravnikar to Oton Jugovec. And we are also struggling to keep their heritage, to keep their buildings alive, to keep their buildings protected, not only protected, but also being lived and in a way renovated. Like this roof that is still standing as a symbol of modernistic interpretation of tradition, but still being a really daring construction hanging under this horizontal landscape. It's been demolished. It's very much endangered. Mateusz knows very much how we are now struggling to keep it, to renovate it partly, and to keep it as a small little icon being visited by our students. Every week they are sending me photos like that. In my project that are now quite lasting for a long time, we started with really strong conceptual works, trying to liberate the existing structures of castles, of squares, of different kind of protected old buildings by trying to open up the spaces, but in many cases we did not have enough actually potential to really build something new or inside or between them, but trying to understand their articulation, their structure, their materiality, and with the new, which I believe is essential to be put inside something existing, somehow try to start the dialogue with it. We are building mostly public buildings, building a lot with the wood, and trying to also by renovation, insert some wooden addition, like with this private house or this upgrading of this obsolete school of children with hearing problems, or establishing new apartments for young people inside the city cores, or trying to renovate energy insulation of some existing modernistic heritage of Slovenia. I'm presenting, this is one of my first projects that I did. This is a small chapel inside an old monastery. It was first planned here to be shops. And I started the project by unifying two existing rooms, like you see on the plan, establishing a passing way towards the altar, and achieving here a meditation space through this very hidden door. A path of the light enters these wooden cladded walls, bringing people from the busy street, from an open square, into an intimate, silent room. This was the door, this is the light, and this was the chamber and the view towards the room. I'm explaining this story because this chapel was used only for a couple of years, and they called me a couple of years ago that they want to do a bakery out of it. And I was thinking and considering, and in the end I decided not to do this project because I don't believe it's necessary to have another bakery on this busy street. So thanks, probably the thing is going on and the space is going to be transformed. I don't mind for my work, I actually mind for the publicity of certain spaces that we opened up. The next project was in Maribor, a small town on the north of Slovenia, that was an obsolete, neglected palace with beautiful lights inside, that we opened up all the spaces and established new, freely moving corridors and ways through all different areas of this building, trying to involve connecting space flowing through all the rooms and connecting them with the program of the cultural center. So this is the new pavement of the courtyard and the new interior rooms, the new facade inserted elements of the windows and double height spaces inside. And this was one of the first connections with these rough, cleaning construction sites when tons of layers of plasters were put out and the new light started to enter these rooms. And with this breaking through of the actually rebuilt walls, we achieved some arcades and new spaces within these vaulted rooms with the daring and black new interventions of the elements enabling new conditions for the modern life in these buildings, lifting up some layers of passages and showing old plasters and enabling people to move around. These processes are the things that really interest me because you are working with lots of different specialists, from conservators up to the workers that are always helping and struggling and smiling during these quite difficult, short processes we are working, and trying to present the layers and establishing the transitions, opening and presenting the findings and bringing new light into these spaces for the future life of events, of cultural events inside this building. The other project was also an abandoned ruin beside a castle that looked to be actually demolished. I don't think that new constructions are a good perspective for Europe. As you know, Europe is struggling to keep and reuse as much as possible of the existing buildings. Therefore, we discovered really beautiful, beautiful spaces inside, and we discovered the space, the square actually in front of the whole complex, connecting the main square with this our square and trying to actually use this as the gathering space of the whole new program of a music school and a small archaeological museum, trying to establish again freely moving corridors through all the programs, trying to clean and reinforce the building and prepare it for the new life inside it, like this space of the community space of the music school, or this common aula for events, and this entrance to the museum that is now presenting the archaeological findings of the place, setting this on different places and moving around them. We used brick for all the new interventions, actually creating in some parts also some completely new building areas, presenting the sculptures of the place and opening the views towards the park, creating sitting areas for kids, and so it looks today with the new additions and existing white walls, creating the square in front of the building, communicating with the castle, and opening up the public space for events. Our very complex, although it doesn't seem like a project, was in Ljubljana, where we were invited to help with the renovation of the house where our architect Jože Plečnik lived. You see him in Wagner school together with Wagner, but his house was actually a very small, tiny piece beside all these monumental works that he did in Ljubljana. And it was built in the suburbs, and his brother bought it in 1921. So Plečnik moved there in 1921 when he moved back to Ljubljana and was always dreaming to build an addition to this house. So we discovered through different layers that actually the house was, you see, built of different parts, the main part and several more additions that he had. And he added he added this circular volume, and then he added a pergola on the northern side. And then in the end, he bought another house on the south, and he did a winter garden towards the back of the house. So he was living in the house till 57 when he died, and step by step transforming it and using it, and especially being all the time orientated towards the garden. So when we started, actually, the house was partly used for visits of small groups of 7 people with guided tours and to the entrance of the museum. So you see, this was actually the entrance to the museum, and this was rented out. So
There's a clicker also.
Huh? Oh, yeah, it's okay. It was a car park there, as you see. Thank you very much. Thank you. And it looked quite neglected. So we decided actually to connect all the house together, to organize in this yellow dot a common room, a shop, and an info point where all the visitors circulate around, and they have side programs on both sides of the house where they start actually the visit of this left part, which is actually the main part of the house, where everybody can see how the architect lived. For all this, we had to slightly remove certain parts of the walls to reorganize the whole new circulating plan of the entrance part. And step by step, the restaurators were cleaning the house, so you enter the house now from the other side, and you see traces of the architect's interventions here. You see how it was all overgrown with the greenery, and now after all these daring reinforcement activities, the plant is growing back again. You enter the house and you experience his way of actually using the house with all these spaces, the entrance pavilion with the columns, his working room and working desk. So all the visitors can walk in small groups, ask questions, touch things, and experience actually the rooms as they were. Especially the attic rooms were now reopened for certain small exhibition, temporary exhibitions, and they show really the modesty of his way of living while inhabiting these spaces at the first. And in the courtyard, those transformations were quite a bit bigger. We removed all the unnecessary laterly built things. Step by step, we were trying to remove the flusters and discovering old and new interventions and presenting the house entrance like that today. So you see the entrance to the shop and the entrance to the museum, where we discovered actually his mask of the old door and presenting it together with the timeline and some works presenting his, yeah. So this whole project was a very, let's say, intense 2-year interdisciplinarity communication with all different kind of coordinators, with the conservators, restaurators, and all the colleagues of mine working on it. And the house now is not a frozen museum of his way of life. The house is open with temporary exhibitions with lots of visitors, many more visitors than before, but it's open also for many different events, for celebration of architecture, Architects Award, or for open discussions in the garden. So it became an open space full of actually temporary life that is happening there, not being just preserving house as it was while he was living here, but it opened up for also discussion on actual topics of architecture today. The last case I'm going to show you is a big castle on the north of Slovenia with 365 rooms, if I don't know, and they will probably never have enough money actually to renovate and reuse the whole structure. But we started step by step, one room, the other, 4 rooms for sleeping, and then renovating and reopening part of the corridor, and in a later stage, opening and presenting the chapel, being now used also for the concerts. And then in the last part, there was a small architectural exhibition that happened. And you see in the other part that was not used yet for any, let's say, permanent use with the schools from Vienna, Graz, Ljubljana. We did a workshop in the area with our students, and this was actually the most interesting and the most published part of our project, keeping the existing structures as they are and bringing the new life inside these walls. So I hope that in the next steps of the renovation of the castles, much more layers of the past and the dust will be presented to the visitors to see that actually our heritage is not always living in good conditions, and there are times that are inhabiting them are actually changing and keeping their traces on the walls with these invisible, intangible stories. I think that kind of presentations shows us that architecture is just the shell of life, which in a way it should enable, but still also leave the walls to carry the stories that happened inside it. Thank you very much.
The last speaker for today is Rok Žnidaršič, pardon my Slovenian, Associate Professor of Architecture and founder of Medprostor. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Open House Europe, Greece, and Slovenia. We are very happy to be here, and I'm going to present one project from our practice Medprostor we established with Jerneja 15 years ago, and it could be understood as an example of our approach. It is a medieval ruins of a large monastic church. Original remains where decay has revealed the genesis of development from mid-20th century. The following phases are legible: Romanesque phase, Gothic phase from 15th century, and later Baroque renovations and conservation implementation in 1970s. This monastery played an important role in the history of medieval Christian Europe. The Carthusians were considered one of the strictest orders of the Catholic Church, important as medieval prototype of modern universities. Their diplomatic role was also very important at the time when monastic orders were important holders of knowledge. One of the largest libraries in medieval Europe was located here. The monastery operated continuously for almost 600 years until its dissolution at the end of 18th century. You could see its placement in Europe, in the northeastern part of Slovenia, and its micro-location in one narrow valley. This monastic order is characterized not only by a walled complex of buildings, but also by an understanding of the importance of harmony of a broader scale. Thus, the monastery becomes an entire valley, secluded from people. It is 2 kilometer long and has remained undeveloped to this day. This digital relief model shows the logic of the whole, based of 2 monasteries. One is here and the other is here, connected with the valley. The lower and upper monastery, which form an inseparable whole. It demonstrates the high quality of logic, of contextual placement in the natural landscape and topography. In addition to safety and peace, drinking water was important, and the monastery is located between 2 streams of drinking water. The state before renovation, ruins essentially wreck as the remains of dissolved monastery served as a quarry for nearby villages until the second half of the 20th century. The central building, a large monastery church, it is shown here, yes, has been without a roof for the last 200 years. It is the motif of romantic ruin, an important part of which is intangible value, peace and tranquility, the atmosphere of Gothic exposed structure with the sky as its ceiling. As such, it is part of the mental image of generations of visitors and one of the most important historical monuments in the country. Sandstone and limestone mortar do not withstand weather conditions well, so physical protection. Sorry. Physical protection is necessary for long-term preservation. The monument is managed by the local community, and the only source of maintenance income is from visitors. So there was a desire to improve the level of experience and ensure the implementation of more demanding events. The defense towers, as you see here, and the walls have been reconstructed over the last 2 decades. The quality is questionable, but it is an important factor in deciding how to approach the most valuable part. The dilemma in the architectural conservation approach, we were convinced that it was not right to continue with the same approach, but at the same time we wanted to create a harmonious whole. You could see how it was not much more than 25 years ago. So we decided to propose a solution that would actively respond to the context, which has a distinctly dual nature. With the outlined volume of the former most dominant roof in the complex, we harmonize the hierarchy of the entrance composition of volumes and masses, while on the other hand, we preserve the character of the ruins in relation to the original preserved structures of the central part of the monastery. Because in Carthusian monasteries, the graveyard is the most important central part of the whole composition. So the new intervention will serve as a stage bedrock that regulates relationship and enables what was previously impossible, a view of the whole from the above. This is now a recognizable entrance image with an orderly hierarchy of roofs. The central chapel and defensive tower, as the best preserved buildings in the complex, as shown before in the central part, are now able to observe it from above. So a viewing niche for a view from above here, and the intervention of modern roof, which provides protection and presentation of the remains. We also understand it as an interpretation of medieval technological process, which enabled the construction of tall and complex structures. And at the same time suggest that it is not a finished building, but merely a protection of valuable substance that retains some of the charm of construction site aesthetics. So you could observe this harmony in the seemingly discordant. Thank you. Just as the Gothic cathedral was a testament to the latest technological achievements, we believe that contemporary intervention must also pursue the goal of technological, functional, and aesthetic excellence. Cross-section of the intervention. All contemporary interventions are made in such a way that they are legible when they were created, to which period they belong, they are honest. And at the same time, precisely because of this, they are consistent with the whole. And at the same time, they are homage to Sverefin, to Carlos Scarpa, to Hans Dolberg, and others. The advantage of this intervention is that it has given people a new dimension of experiencing the monument, a corridor in the thickness of the wall. The most sacred space has remained empty, dedicated to nature and sublime. The concept of renovation from top to bottom, only necessary interventions, protections from atmosphere and earthquakes, which allows for the installation of a new roof and accessible staircases suspended on connection beams, so they do not need their own foundations, as the original remains are preserved there. Each step is different shape and adapts to the ruins. The new steps do not touch the original ones, but are based on their shape. They are inserted into hollow-out wall. These are remnants of stone blocks on the bottom. This contact between new roof and existing walls reveals all the simplicity and complexity of the intervention, revealing all historical phases, including those from 1970s. The small side chapel, where the founder was buried, remains open with only a green protective red added above the walls, which interprets the two construction phases, Romanesque and Gothic. The historical genesis of the building, and follows the design elements of the whole. Evokes the feelings that generations of visitors experienced when visiting the ruins. Preserving the immaterial values of the monument, such as this contact with the open sky. And a clear distinction between the original and the new interventions. To retain the character of a romantic ruin, the construction also allows for the installation of sound and lighting technology. The original parts have been carefully restored in such a way that at first glance it looks as if nothing had been done. The missing parts are presented in their absence in negative, where stone elements were once built into the wall. We left a shadow joint, a groove. The gradation from older to younger structures can be seen in relation to the plaster. What was added in the 20th century is covered with a thin layer of plaster to ensure the harmony of the whole. It is also important to ask how new interventions interpret the time of our interventions, which is why the structure of the walkways is a motive of construction scaffolding, which is prefabricated, as it serves a protection of the archaeological layers. So if you compare this pavement with this grid, it's a kind of relation. The entrance portal is an interpretation of the last preserved face and the bearer of the oldest part, the stone from the original Romanesque portal, which we found in the lapidarium. The church is designed in terms of dimensions as an acoustic device. As Secretarians perform rituals with singing in Gregorian chant. Therefore, the new intervention is valuable primarily as a venue for special purposes. And I'm showing you now the last video, how the place is. Yes.
We are electricity. We are more than meets the eye. So much more than meets the eye. The head is closest to the sky. The mind, the cheapest way to fly.
Thank you very much for the invitation.